Welcome to Cinnamon Babe Horror Stories. I'm Cinnamon Babe, and every Friday I discuss creepy topics while I do my makeup. So if you're interested, please like and subscribe, and please enjoy the video. So today we're going to talk about Connecticut. Connecticut is said to be one of the most haunted states in the U.S. And why not? It has a bloody past of thousands of Native American tribes being nearly eradicated and captured. And it is said that the land is cursed due to sacred lands of the Native Americans being violated by violent English settlers of the 16th century. So Dudleytown, Connecticut being of no exception. So in the early 1700s, English settlers sectioned off 490 acres of Cornwall Township. About 30 families settled there, and the small village thrived for a while. So Dudleytown was plentiful in lumber due to all the surrounding trees, and they provided Litchfield County and other surrounding townships with wood-burned coal that they created, and that kind of like put them on the map, and they thrived for a while doing so. But the surrounding area in Connecticut ended up advancing due to the railroads, and they no longer needed Dudley's assistance when it came to the furnaces. So nearing at the end of the 1700s, Dudleytown ended up experiencing horrible and unexplainable events. So one family of Dudley that lived in Dudleytown, they ended up losing 6 members in their family due to a disease called cholera that swept through Connecticut. And so the remainder of that family ended up moving to New York. And when they moved to New York, they ended up being greeted by angry Native Americans that ambushed them. They slaughtered all of them except for 3 of the children, but they slaughtered the mother, the father, the baby, and they ended up taking 3 of the children for ransom. I believe 2 of the children were saved, but 1 assimilated into the tribe, and basically that became like his family. So yeah, that's crazy. Then another member of Dudleytown died suspiciously at his friend Tanner's house. And no one really knows how he died, if it was an accident or if it was foul play involved, but he ended up dying. And shortly after he passed, Tanner, the owner of the house, he started experiencing paranormal things. He started seeing like dark, shadowy figures in the woods surrounding his house in Dudley, because Dudley is like located in the woods. And he became obsessed. Like, he became obsessed with like the creatures he was seeing in the woods. And so that was all he ever talked about. And eventually he ended up going insane, to the point where his daughter had to care for him, and basically until he died. Soon after, many of the other members of Dudley started complaining about seeing the shadowy figures, and basically just like they would rummage around at night and it would really freak them out. And a lot of the members of Dudley ended up like going insane, like permanently insane until their deaths. So in 1804, a famous war hero named General Armand Swift, they lived in Dudley, him and his wife, and apparently while they were enjoying each other's company, sitting on the porch, it was like kind of like a stormy day, but nothing serious. Well, out of nowhere, the general's wife was struck by lightning, and it instantly like ended her life right in front of him. Shortly after, due to grief, the general ended up going insane and losing his life as well. I believe due to grief and the insanity of losing his wife. And so just later on, just throughout the years, a lot of the members of Dudleytown would either die from mysterious plagues that would sweep through, they would die from fires, drownings, or just completely just turn up missing and just never being heard from again. All the while these disappearances and tragic deaths are happening, a lot of the members are still complaining about seeing these shadowy figures. By the beginning of the 1900s, Basically all the members of Dudleytown either died tragic deaths, completely disappeared and were never heard from again, or just packed all their belongings and left their homes abandoned. By then, the Brophy family is the only family left in Dudley. Everybody else has packed up and left. So the Brophy family, they had 2 sons and they had livestock. Well, one day, all their livestock just mysteriously dies. Like their sheep, everything just dies. Next, the mother dies of tuberculosis. Just suddenly dies of a terrible disease. And then after that, their 2 sons, adult sons, get accused from a neighboring town of theft. And so they disappear and are never heard from again. And it's believed that they just went on the run because they were like wanted felons. And so after that, the only member of the Dudley town was John, the father and husband of the Brophy family. And so weeks after his sons just disappear, his house just bursts into flames. Like his house just sets on fire. So they said that he like barely gets out of the fire away with his life, and all he has on is the clothes on his back, and then he just wanders into the woods and is never seen or heard from again. And that's just so tremendously sad, because like with him being the only member left after his whole family is destroyed and everything he has is destroyed, he probably went insane as well, and he probably was seeing horrifying things as well in the woods. And so he just vanishes into the woods and is never heard from again, and it's just so tragic. So after that, Dudleytown remains abandoned and is a ghost town after that. All that is left is stony structures, overgrown places where houses used to be, like burnt down, like wood structures with overgrown like trees and just like plants over it, and like basically nature reclaimed Dudleytown. That is not the end of the cryptic story of Dudleytown. There's still more left. So there was a Dr. Clark and his wife Harriet Clark in the early 1900s. They were interested in having a summer home outside of New York, because New York was very busy and they just had a very busy, hectic life in New York. So they were looking for summer getaway, weekend getaway type of house. Dr. Clark was the lead cancer specialist in New York City, and he also was a professor at Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons. And so, like I said, very hectic life in New York. They loved it, but they were looking for like a getaway. And so one day they're driving through Cornwall, Connecticut, in search of like a plot of land to start their summer home. And they end up falling in love with the beautiful, like scenic farmland / mountainside / foresty area. Like they were really looking for like that quiet country style cabin like living. Like that's what they were looking for, and they ended up finding that in Cornwall, Connecticut. So in 1906, Mr. and Mrs. Clark, they're driving through Litchfield County, and like I said, it's mostly farmlands and pastures and woodsy, like foresty, heavily foresty areas and mountainsides, and it's just a beautiful country area. They end up driving through what is now called Dark Entry Forest, and the reason why it's called Dark Entry Forest is because it's a canopy of trees that as soon as you enter it, it makes it look like it's nighttime. So it's like completely dark, it blocks out the sunlight. And so they start driving through that, and they noticed that the road is like getting smaller and smaller, and it's getting harder and harder to drive through. So they decided to get out and walk and kind of scope the area on foot. They're walking through the forest, and it seems enchanted. Like there's birds chirping, there's babbling brooks, there's beams of sunlight shooting through the canopy of trees, and it's like straight out of like a storybook, like Snow White type of scenery. And they just end up falling in love with just the peacefulness of it. It's super quiet. All you can hear is nature. There's apple trees and wildflowers everywhere. And they end up seeing like a clearing with like a patch of land right next to the brooks and the streams. And they decide right there and then that that's going to be the perfect space for their summer home, their cabin. Mind you, Dark Entry Forest is right where Dudleytown was. And so the Clarks, like I said, they're falling in love with the beautiful space that they're seeing. But they also notice the ruins, like some of the like stony structures and the overgrown structures. They're noticing that, but they like it. Like they think it looks cool. Like it adds to like the beauty of the scenery to them, and it just seems cool to them. So like I said, they made up their mind. That's the patch of land that they're gonna buy. So they end up returning back to New York City, and they purchase 1,000 acres of that land, which includes Dudleytown. And so once they purchased the land and it was finalized, then Dr. Clark tried to see if he could find some builders to start construction on the cabin. And he soon finds that nobody is interested in doing it. Like, he keeps going around looking for builders, and they're all turning him down no matter what he pays. No matter what he offers, they're all saying no. They won't really tell him why. And so with Dr. Clark being handy, he was born on a farm and just used to just hard work, and he was good with his hands. He decided that he was going to build it himself. So every weekend, Dr. Clark would go out to the cabin and go out to the woods, and he would work on his cabin, and he did it with his bare hands. He cut down hemlock trees, and he built a 2-story cabin. He laid the piping into the nearby brooks for plumbing, and he also made a swimming pool out of a nearby brook. And once he was complete with the cabin, him and his wife, they started their summer getaways, their holiday getaways, their weekend getaways. They would swim, they would hike, they would just have a peaceful, wonderful time, just getting away from the big city. And they did this. This was a every weekend and holiday thing, and it was wonderful up until the 1918. So the summer of 1918. Dr. Clark, while at the cabin with his wife, ended up getting a call to return back to New York for a medical emergency for his job. And so he had to go. And so his wife was upset because she did not want to be left alone in this cabin in the woods for, obvious reasons, because that could be creepy and it just doesn't feel good to be alone. Why she didn't make the decision to go back with her husband, I don't know why that was not an option for her, why, especially if she felt uncomfortable. I don't know why she didn't do it, but she didn't do it. So she drives her husband to the train station that's not too far away from Dark Entry Forest, and she makes him promise her that he'll come back as soon as possible, and he promises her, and she returns back to Dark Entry Forest alone, back to the cabin alone. And I'm sure she tried to make peace with being alone by, doing chores and reading books and basically trying her best to enjoy the cabin as she always did, even though she was alone. But when you're left to your silence, I'm sure it was completely quiet, and there was just you out there in the woods. You're left to your thoughts, and I'm sure it was beautiful during the daytime, but it's back in the day where there was no TV or internet. So, like I said, complete and utter silence in the woods. And then at nighttime, it's a total different story than the daytime. And so small noises like twigs snapping and leaves rustling and animals making strange noises in the woods. It's kind of amplified at night. You get, it's more significant to you at night. So yeah, she had to make her peace with being alone. And so fast forwarding 36 hours later, Dr. Clark is finished with his task at work, and he's able to return back to the cabin. He gets off the train, and he's expecting to see his wife there waiting for him, but she's not there. And so I'm sure he waited for an hour or so, and he could sense that something was terribly wrong. Something was gravely wrong, because, there's no reason why she wouldn't be there, especially when she wanted him to come home so bad. So he decides he's just gonna walk back to the cabin, and it's not far, and he races through the woods. And while he's racing through the woods, he's just noticing that there's a tension, like there's a negative energy in the woods that wasn't there before. He doesn't feel welcome in the woods anymore as he did at first when he first moved there, and it was a place of happiness and joy, and now he feels such a negative energy, like he shouldn't be there. So that makes it worse for him. So he's racing through the woods to get back to his wife, and when he returns to the cabin, he notices that, and I don't know this for 100% sure, but I heard from other sources that the cabin door was open. And so obviously that's automatically a bad sign. He barges into the cabin, and like I said, it's a 2-story cabin. And he can hear, this is another thing I don't know for sure, but like I said, I've heard it from sources. He can hear like a deafening like noise, and it's like really bad. And as he gets closer to the upstairs, he can hear that it's screaming and laughter, like crazy, like screaming and laughter. And so when he gets upstairs, he can see his wife like in an unnatural, like crumpled up position in the corner of the room, and her mouth is like stretched wide open, and she's like, that noise is coming from her. And so it scared him so bad, which is so understandable, that he just like literally ran out of the cabin and left her there. That's how scared he was. His wife ended up having to get committed because her mind was completely gone. She completely lost her mind. And she ended up taking her life. Like, before she took her life, she was complaining about shadowy figures in the woods and that they attacked her. And so as a result, she lost her mind because she was so terrified. And it's just so sad. Oh my gosh, it's so sad. Dr. Clark, after the loss of his wife, he ends up remarrying. He continues to revisit the cabin throughout his life. And he also builds like a larger house not too far from the old cabin, and has children, and basically goes without incident. And to this day, like his family still owns like a lot of the land down there. And yeah, that was the end. That's basically the end of that story. I didn't really see like he experienced any further like disturbances out there, and it was never said that he ever experienced anything other than what happened to his wife out there. But it's just, oh my gosh, it's so, like, it's such a traditional, terrifying cabin in the woods story. So to this day, Dark Entry Forest remains a ghost town. Dudleytown remains like a ghost town, and the forest is illegal to enter. But of course, hikers still go in there anyway and try to see if they can see for themselves if it's haunted. And a lot of people have reported feeling, the eerie feeling that Dr. Clark felt. They report seeing the shadowy figure. Some people, they report feeling like touches and hearing things. And so a lot of people do confirm that it's haunted. Back in the 1970s, the famous ghost hunters, Ed and Lorraine Warren, they take a trip out there and they confirm that it is infested with demonic entities. And so, yeah, basically they confirm it. Like I said, it is illegal today to go into Dark Entry Forest at all, or to inside like the Dudleytown ruins or anything. So it's illegal. Like I said, a lot of people still try it, but I heard that like you can get in a lot of trouble for trespassing out there. And I heard that they won't like explain why it's illegal. I heard that like the mayor or whoever of Cornwall, like a booklet or something, and he never like, I guess it's a booklet of basically telling people to stay out, but they never really tell you why. So it just makes people want to go in there more. Will I ever go in there? Absolutely not, because I'm not crazy. But yeah, so it is, I don't even know what date it is today. I think it's October 18th or 17th today. And so we're getting closer and closer to Halloween, so I got my little witch cape thing going on. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And stay tuned for the next video.
Peace.